Wizards of Waverly Place is an American fantasy sitcom that aired between 2007 and 2012 on the Disney Channel. With its quirky sense of humor, charming cast of characters, and heartfelt relationship between the central family, it certainly stands above its contemporaries as a powerhouse of family television. However, what makes it truly unique is the ingenious plot device of the Family Wizard competition. Each necessary element of the sitcom perfectly wraps around the competition. For example, how do we create and set goals for our protagonists so they're not just aimlessly wandering about the world casting spells, so to speak? Simple, the wizard competition. How do we keep the kids at the center of the story without making the parents some magic reset button that can fix everything? The wizard competition. Jerry doesn't have powers because of the wizard competition. Simple as. Why do wizards live among humans and go to high school instead of living in the wizard world and fighting dragons or, kissing mermaids? Because of the wizard competition. They might not have their powers someday, so they've got to learn how to be mortals. The idea that wizards will have to lose their powers eventually, except for of course one, and live in the wizard world is just so suspenseful, like the sword of Damocles is constantly hanging over these protagonists. Which one of them will go on to live an exciting life of magic and mayhem, and which two are going to live a boring life of sandwiches and taxes? Plus, it also teaches the viewers a valuable lesson of life's not fair, tough tits, get over it, and try to be happy where you are. What exactly is the wizard competition, though? In Waverly lore, there is an ancient tradition dating back centuries and centuries that siblings must compete against one another to see whom among them will keep their powers into adulthood. The competition was created to prevent malevolent and/or incompetent wizards, or even just wizards who are irresponsible in general, from wielding magic against the mortal world. Many of the rules and lore are a bit iffy just due to the general genre, budget, and nature of the series. Being a simple Disney sitcom after all. Furthermore, we never see any wizards that have powers and also have children, or at the very least we never see them use their powers, so it's a bit up in the air as to whether or not they actually have them. Furthermore, the show is written specifically from the perspective of this one single nuclear family, so, it is what it is. However, I've tried to piece it all together as best as I can, and frankly, I've made a few assumptions. For a family to qualify, they must have at least one wizard parent who qualified for their competition, but don't necessarily have to have won. It's also possible that perhaps only one sibling from the previous generation has to qualify. So for example, if your mum were a wizard who failed to qualify and lost by default, as long as you had an aunt that qualified and won, you may still qualify for your competition. So perhaps as long as you have a competent magic teacher and/or access to the wizard world, you may participate. It's unclear how this may affect less traditional families like polygamous marriages or wizards having multiple children from multiple partners, or other more disturbing subjects that obviously Disney Channel won't cover. Rule 2. Each wizard nuclear family is given one portal to the wizard world, and if you lose it, tough tits. Rule 3. There is a set date at which siblings must be sufficiently prepared and fully qualified for the competition. This will vary based on number of siblings and age gaps. However, this should roughly coincide with all the siblings reaching the age of majority and finishing puberty. However, in the finale it is stated that what triggered the competition was Alex doing something nice without using magic and without being asked. So perhaps if all wizards are fully qualified before the date of the competition, it can commence. In the dubiously canonical movie, there's also a contrived clause of the wizard competition, whereby the siblings can commence the competition early if they need to cast a spell that only a full wizard can cast, and only that a member of that family can cast. If there is one sibling who has a massive lead over his or her siblings, with little chance of them catching up, that wizard has the right to move the date of the competition up as a sort of mercy rule. We do see that there is a leveling system based on skill and responsibility with magic. When a wizard learns his or her 5,000th spell, they complete their basic studies and are able to take up some form of independent study. We see that Justin Russo takes up Monster Hunter. In the aptly named Season 3 episode Monster Hunter, Max suggests that it's possible to fail independent studies, in Justin's case by never being able to capture all the monsters he unleashes on New York City. which seems to give him no consequences despite the heavy focus in the competition in the season, but whatever. Hunting at least 3 level 6 monsters seems to be beyond the scope of this monster hunting independent study. And also, once a wizard has completed his or her course, they can be instated under that position officially. Things that can set you back or disqualify you, if severe enough, from the wizard competition. 1. Preventing your family or guardians from seeing your magical report card. 2. Exposing wizardry, bad sportsmanship, and breaking the 11 wizard rules, one of which is using magic for fame or fortune. This can also result in a full wizard getting their hands broken by a dragon so that they can never hold a wand. Things that can level you up. Exceptional skill with magic, strong familial bond, services to the wizard world such as tutoring delinquents in Just In Case or taking a delinquent course in Alex's case, winning Wizard of the Year, and exceptional heroism. We see there are various tests put in place by the Wizard Council to test the Russos and presumably other families, specifically in Wizards Exposed, where they are tested on their loyalty to the secret of wizardry. If a wizard is deemed to show serious irresponsibility, they may have their powers suspended for an indefinite period of time, or may be disqualified outright. The victorious family wizard does have the right to abdicate their powers to a sibling of their choice, presumably if that sibling has qualified for their competition. Full wizards aren't allowed to marry non-wizards. Though we see the Russo siblings dating other non-wizard magical creatures and examples of hybrid creatures, so it probably prohibits wizards with powers specifically marrying mortals with no magical heritage. If all siblings in a family should fail to qualify, their wizard line will be discontinued and their descendants will live as mortals. However, this rule was revealed to be part of a test of character and may be untrue. Losing siblings must willingly abdicate their powers to the victorious sibling, or they are forced to undergo soul rehab, like Stevie Nichols. Though whether or not a wizard literally has to get their powers absorbed by their siblings is debatable in Waverly lore. Finally, only children seem to be granted more leniency from the watchful eye of the Wizard Council. For example, T.J. Taylor, another wizard at Tribeca Prep, is able to be as irresponsible and even downright evil, including revealing wizardry, with no consequences from the Wizard Council. There are 2 different versions of the competition. The one we see in the movie and the one we see in the series finale, so spoiler alert for either of those. The details of the movie's version of the competition are like so. A wizard, presumably meant to be the previous generation's family wizard, in this case Jerry Russo, will initiate the competition. Each sibling will teleport to a battlefield, presumably in the wizard world, into an individual tower. And they are forced to make their way to the center where a ball representing the power of full wizardry lies. The siblings can only use spells of the 4 elements: fire, earth, water, and air. You also have to try, because if one sibling is clearly not putting their heart into it, the competition is void, essentially, and the magic will just not choose somebody. The first sibling to get to the Bowl of Power wins. In the finale, the competition takes the form of a televised game show. It is initiated when Alex completes the last qualification. As mentioned earlier, it is to do something nice without being asked and without using magic. By making spaghetti, in this instance, because they work with what they've got. The competition is initiated by Headmaster Crumbs. Whether or not he does this for all families, or if he just did this for the Russos, is unclear. Chancellor Rudy Tooty Tooty asks questions as the host, and there is a panel of 3 judges, including Professor Crumbs. The friends and family of the competitors are allowed to spectate, including mortals Harper and Zeke, who shouldn't know about magic, but, who cares? It's the last episode, they want to get things over and done with, and they want to have all the characters meet up, because it's a finale, right?
Okay, before we start, just a few rules. You will each have 1 challenge and 1 timeout. Kind of describes my second marriage.
Each sibling has 1 challenge, where they may contest the decision by the judges, and 1 timeout for 45 minutes. If you should fail to return within the allocated time, you're disqualified. However, this rule may not necessarily be a full rule of the competition, as we do see that it is a setup later. In round 1, the siblings must answer questions about magical situations they've been involved in, and general knowledge about spells and magic. In round 2, we see a test of character reserved exclusively for families with a history of conflict. The contestants are lured onto a false quest of heroism or other such similar task that will cause them to have to use their timeouts and return late. The siblings will be falsely disqualified, and they will be judged on their ability to reconcile and survive without magic. The final round is a race through a labyrinth, and the first sibling out is the winner. The sibling with the most points at the end of the competition wins the full wizardship. There is one final completely rule that got pulled out of thin air in the finale as well. Full wizardship may be granted as to a failed wizard at the discretion of the leader of the magical world. But this really only happens to Justin because of his exceptional talent with magic and the fact that Professor Crumbs was counting on him to win so that he could succeed as headmaster of WizTech, leaving one sibling completely out in the dust with his powers, and it was the most thing I've ever seen when I watched the finale for the first time.